I'd like to offer a prayer to begin our loving Heavenly Father. We came to the third day at this precious place where we are able to share your word. Even though we are very small, the eternal will that you seek to accomplish through us, we know is massive and great. Therefore, please, I pray that with this day, this can be a day, and that you can bless this day, that we can unite our minds and bodies centering on you. I pray also for all our brothers and sisters gathered here and around the world to receive grace from you, to feel your heart, and together with God and the true parents, emerge as true sons and daughters and show the true image and true form of true sons and daughters in their families. Please bless them that this can be so. Because we were born as fallen offspring, you thought of us and worked to bring us salvation through the true parents. And even though we met the true parents, we've still been unable to completely understand the depth of your heart and the depth of true Father's heart. Therefore, please, Heavenly Father, please lift our hearts and open our hearts through the light of love so that we can move forward with new determination towards the future. Father, I'm so grateful for your grace as you spend this time with us. I pray all these things in the name of the blessed central family, Yu Jeong-Ok Yu. Good morning, everybody. Connecting on from what we listened to yesterday on our second day, the most important aspect of the principle is, we could say, is the principle of creation, and because it deals with the blueprint of God's creation for the world. And within that blueprint, because we were never born understanding what is God's heart. But the effort of God's heart forms the central content of His providence to bring salvation, and also is connected to the value and heart of true parents. Therefore, in order to resolve problems in the world, we need to deeply connect and understand God's nature. In the case of a patient who is ill, in order to bring healing to that patient, it's important to be able to correctly analyze the disease that the patient is suffering from. Without understanding clearly the nature of the disease that the patient is suffering from, we cannot develop a treatment, or we cannot implement measures for prevention of that illness. Yeah. God and all of the creation were created to resemble God's nature. But because we forgot God, who is the core and center of the created blueprint, that has resulted in the suffering that we in humanity have experienced and the world of suffering we live in today. Therefore, we're going to use time to really focus on the nature of God and His principle of creation. We could say that there are philosophical elements, and in some sense there is academic elements that we're studying here. From that viewpoint, it may feel a bit tough, it may feel a bit dry, but the point is that if we can resolve these fundamental issues, then it deepens our capacity to resolve the issues that we face in the real world. every day. So today I'd like to begin speaking about individual identity. So within God's original image, there is the universal image and individual image. Thank you. So God, being the source of all creation, God's nature is manifested within all of the creation, including Songsang and Hyongsang, positivity and negativity. So, in addition to these universal elements within God's original image, there are also individual and unique elements. By understanding the relationship between these elements, in order to accomplish a society and a world centering on God, we need to revisit these ideas, particularly of the individual aspects. So all created beings resemble God's dual characteristics. So Songsang and Hyongsang, positive and negativity, are carried by all the created beings in the world. And together, this Hyongsang and Songsang, positive and negativity, we refer to as the universal dimensions, universal nature. However, in all created beings, including human beings, each individual body, in addition to having this universal nature, we also have individual unique aspects, qualities and characteristics. For this reason, we say that and that individual unique nature also comes from God. So those universal aspects that come from God also include unique aspects and character. So the unique aspects of all created beings that come from within God we call individual image. So when God's individual image is manifest in the created world, we call that an individual truth body. So, for example, God's unique aspects, if we can label it A, is manifest within human beings and the created beings. And human beings express that in image, whereas the created beings express this in image, in symbol. Let's have a look, for example, in the case of a nation like America. That nation has a structure, it's got a geographical shape on the planet, and that is that's the actual shape and image of America. But if we take the example of a flag, the flag of America, that's a symbol of the nation. So the Bible records how that we are able to understand God through the creation simply because the creation symbolizes this nature of God. However, human beings, being created in the image of God, reflect the nature of God to a greater extent and in image form. Therefore, we need to understand human beings clearly and correctly in order to clearly and correctly grasp the nature of God as well. So you need to, from this viewpoint, we can understand how important it is to understand the individual image. So any actual created being that is the manifestation of God includes both the universal elements, or in the universal image and the individual image. So there are unique features that belong to the Songsang, and there are unique features that belong to the Hyongsang element in all individual truth bodies. So that individual body or individual truth body is the substantial manifestation of the individual image within God. So, for example, in every person, they have their unique personality, character, they have interests, and so forth. All of these are unique to each individual person. In the entire world, we have more than 7 billion human beings living, but no one of those human beings is the same. Each one is unique and individual. In fact, since the creation of Adam, no human being who ever existed, no two human beings who ever existed since the time of Adam are identical. Although we have universal elements that we all share, each person is an individual body representing that individual image. Even twins have unique and individual nature. Then, from the viewpoint of features or characteristics that are individualized within the Hyongsang, they include, the particular unique and special features of our physical form, our physical quality, medium in which things are manifest, and so forth. So, individual truth body manifests both the individual image, individual features, both on the internal level in Songsang and external level in Hyongsang. So, the shape of our body, our individual health and capacity, these are all unique expressions of that unique individual nature. So, the individual nature of human beings is an individualized reflection of the original Songsang of God, and they are all sourced, they all begin in the individual image of God. So why human beings precious? Why do we have divine nature? We're precious because of the preciousness within God's original image. We reflect these aspects of God. So if you think about human beings who deny the process of creation, that deny God, from their viewpoint, in communism, understanding that the value of human beings comes from labor rather than from being a manifestation or individual expression of God's nature. And for that reason, human beings' value is seen as a low thing, as a low being, and human beings are not seen as beings of personality, but rather like animals. However, we are the expressions of God, and we need to treat human beings as precious, valuable, and divine beings, or having that kind of value. So at the same time, also from God, we inherit absolute nature, eternal nature, unchanging nature. Within us comes from God. But that's denied also by materialist thinkers. So the individual image within animals and the individual image within human beings, there's a significant difference between these. Animals, individual image, don't have a unique. Animals internal character, do not have an individual image for each individual animal, but rather as depending on the species. You have horses, you have cows, and the individual image of God is manifest in them as a type of species, as a type of group. But that's different from human beings. Within human beings, we are born each as God's son or God's daughter, and therefore each one of us has a unique individual image that is different from every other human being. So the reason why we're different, because we have that individual image from God expressed in our Sungsang and our Hyongsang together. Because animals and created beings are created as the objects for God to receive dominion from human beings, and that's true for plants as well. They're from this viewpoint. What we understand is that not only is God the original image and original source, but we understand that God is the original substance. So philosophy was able to explain on some level the nature, looking at God and trying to understand the nature of God. But when we understand God as the original substance, we're able to explain the nature of love, the nature of life, and the nature of lineage. In the beginning, in the early days, Father used the terminology of true love, true life, and true ideal. Father didn't use the word true lineage, and we didn't understand why is this. So God's true love, true life, and true ideal were the words used by Father, but at the end of his life in the life course, then he came to emphasize true lineage. And that what that means is God's original ideal is lineage. And that's manifest through the family. When we think about this, we spoke about this yesterday, true Father understood all of this content and came to accomplish it, but he could not say everything from the beginning of the Providence. Therefore, Father, when Father established our church, made many different organizations, and finally at the end he established the PWPA to bring together the highest academics in the world. Amongst all of those academics, there are various things that he spoke to them about. Many professors were gathered together to hear Father's word and receive education about Father's teaching. But in the end, Father instituted absoluteness, absolute sex education to these professors, concave and convex. And at first they couldn't understand it, but as Father went along, it became more and more detailed. And finally they begin to grasp the nature of what he was talking about. Why is that old person, that old gentleman, this elder, talking to us and using all of these this kind of street language, talking about sex? But then slowly they were able to understand that in fact sex is so precious and valuable. Then anyway, Father moved the Providence and began the Providence in South America. In 1995, on the 1st of May, he brought to a conclusion 40-year course since the founding of the Unification Church, and brought to a close the Providence, centering on the church, which is focused on individual salvation, and moved the Providence to an era which is focusing on family salvation, and that was the establishment of the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. And so what is the purpose of the FFWPU was to accomplish peace in the world. Therefore, within one family, a husband or one man and one woman need to be united. And when they become one, centering on God's purpose and God's direction, that creates peace within that family. And when you expand that peace within the family, becomes a united nation, a peaceful nation. And when you get a peaceful, united nations together, that is the foundation and manifests as a peaceful, unified world. So peace in the world, unified world, begins from me, within my heart. And depending on what center is in my heart, then the result is different. Within the original world, the center of the human being is our Heavenly Father. So we need to find the Heavenly Father again, and when we attend Him as the center within my heart, then the providence is unfolded, and that's the purpose of the providence, to send the Messiah. But it took 4,000 years to prepare that providence, and Jesus was sent to the Israelites as the chosen people, and then the Israelites, centering on the law, they denied Jesus's teaching and were unable to understand what He was teaching. Why? Because their standard of faith, how they understood the way of life and the standard of the law, they used that as the standard to evaluate Jesus. But Jesus' standard was so much higher, the standard and foundation for His words. He didn't come to just repeat what they understood from the past. Therefore, they had to open their hearts and receive Jesus' word and attend Jesus, and then they would have been, revived. They would have been able to transcend their own standard, but they didn't. Even if Jesus, as the Messiah, explained to them when they did not receive His word, and in the end they crucified Him on the cross. But from the viewpoint of God's providence, even though the Messiah was crucified and died, then that's not the end of the providence of God, and God's providence must be accomplished and is accomplished through 3 stages. Because God is an eternal being, the purpose of God, therefore, is also eternal, unique, and unchanging. So eternal, unique, and unchanging, that is the principle. So in the principle, we have the Wali Wonbon, written by Father. But we don't understand that because Father brought such a broad level of content and compressed it into the Wali Wonbon. And then only the person who wrote that was able to, interpret really and extract the meaning of that. And therefore, in the early days, Father spent many time explaining to us about the meaning of the Wali Wonbon and the content that was expressed in that. So Father, when President Yu was looking at the content, they summarized the meaning that they heard from Father into one page, and yet Father summarized the same content using 10 pages. So the extreme depth of Father's explanation was so broad. Then through Father's explanation of the Wali Wonbon, that was gathered together over a period of 5 years and compiled into the Wali Hersol. So centering then on Wali Hersol, they got together and decided that it would be advantageous to be able to express this content in lecture form. Therefore, that is the Wali Kangnon, or the exposition of the divine principle. So it's not separate from Wali Hersol. It's in fact on the foundation of Wali Hersol that the exposition of divine principle came into being. So why was that necessary? Because the providence had advanced. The providence comes through various stages and then requires a different expression of the word. So have a look at Father's Word. If we look at Father's Word, there's incredible changes, incredible transformation era that we're living in. It's a cosmic revolution taking place in this era. So with Father's words, we can't take words from the past and apply them to the current era, or rather they're not sufficient as an expression for us to resolve all the issues and fulfill the requirements of the current era. The purpose of the Messiah, then, of course, it's to come and educate people. But it's not possible for all that content to be taught. Therefore, through stages, that truth and message from the Messiah needs to be revealed. And then the final stage of that is explaining the nature of God. That's the ultimate final stage. If we understand God, then we can resolve all of the problems that we have. The visible world in which we live, behind that there's an invisible world, and behind that we can understand the invisible world, the visible world, understand God. Moreover, we can understand and penetrate to the realm of God's heart and understand the reality and depth of God's heart. This is the purpose of the OSDP. Therefore, Father, if you look in Father's words, Father explains God from various different dimensions, a variety of different aspects of God's nature. If you look in the first chapter of Jeong, it talks about true God. Please read that section about true God in the first chapter of Jeong, because that's content that we need to read eternally so that we can get to the depth and really understand what God is Father is explaining to us about God. Father mobilized so many different aspects in order for us to understand God. The second chapter in Jeong is about the true parent. God is not visible, but God sends his visible form as his substantial visible form. That is the true parent that God sends. So what does the true parent come to do? The true parent comes with God's true love. And therefore, the true love is the third chapter. So what's the purpose of true love? It is to accomplish a true family. So the fourth section in the Jeong is about the true family. There are 11 sections. The first one starts with God. And there's a lot of different content about all the providence that Father did, explained in different portions and sections. And then right at the end, it's about the blessed families and the family pledge. True God, starting from true God to accomplish true family. In order to establish true family, we need to fulfill the content of the family pledge. Therefore, don't think that the Jeong was just compiled and designed randomly without any purpose. There's a very clear purpose instruction there. And Father instructed how the Jeong should be designed and written. Go into your Jeong and just look at the table of contents. You can see that there's various stages and that there's a development there, and that it covers a very broad content. But then in the Family Federation, they said, "Oh, it's not compiled well, or there's some things are wrong, so we're going to redo it." And what was the result? They left out all the most core important parts. The person who recompiles the Jeong, they do that based on their own thinking, the standard of their own viewpoint. That's, something we really need to reflect on today and consider. According with Father's instruction, we understand that the Cheonseongyong was not made according to my will, but according to Father's will. Therefore, the first step was even though people come and go, but the words and teaching of God and Father are eternal. So, Father instructed us to teach in Japan, centering on Father's Word, and this began the process of compiling that content. So, the true parents, true love, true family, and then bringing all of the compiled content together, it formed 16 books within the Cheonseongyong. And then there needs to be an order amongst all these different parts, and that's what Father arranged. He put it in that structure and order. It's not just sort of put together in some random way. Therefore, today, let's really keep this in mind. This is an important point. Created world, individuals are the manifestation, a substantial manifestation of God's unique individual image. But there is a difference between animals and human beings, and each human being is a unique individual expression of God's nation as God's son or God's daughter. Since the birth of Adam up until today, no two human beings have been exactly the same, and this will be true for eternity into the future. Why? Because we were created as the image of God and the object of God as God's sons and daughters. We have God's individual, unique image, uniquely and individually. And each one of us, human beings, is to be the object to return love and beauty to God. And only each individual can, the love and beauty that we can return to God is unique to each individual. Only that individual can return that particular type of beauty to God. In the beginning, early days in Korea, there was many older grandmas who had a spiritual ability as mediums, who attended Father in North Korea and came down to the south. There was one young woman who was very attractive, and every time Father saw this person, I can't grasp this. Can you take it?
So Father, even though she was not ugly, she was actually quite beautiful, but the Father would say, "Why is she so ugly?" every time he saw her. And she had a spiritual ability, and she could know where Father was going, and so she would go there before he went there, and he would see her, and then again he would say, "Oh, how ugly she is." And he would, and every day after day, he said that. How about you? How would you react in that kind of situation? You'd have a struggle in your faith, wouldn't you? I have to quit this church. How can this person be the Messiah? That's maybe we would have that kind of struggle, but she did not do that, and so finally, she stood up against Father. She stood up to Father. And she prayed. Every time our Father sees me, he sees that I'm ugly, and I think I'm beautiful, but he says I'm ugly. The Messiah says I'm ugly, so what am I going to do? And she prayed this way, and she didn't eat or she didn't sleep, and she just fell asleep as she was praying, and she was just trying to get an answer from God about what to do. So why am I ugly? Or what am I going to do about it? And then she refused to stop praying until she got an answer from God. And God was so. What do you think? How do you think God reacted? On the third day, she was praying like this continually. She heard a voice from heaven, so calling her name. Whether you're beautiful or ugly, you are made in my image. So even if you're ugly, you're still in my image. Even if you're beautiful, you are my image. and you resemble me. And so after that, then she went to early. There's a Chongpadong church. There's a very small room, and there was one. There was one table, and the father would speak there, and father would speak very forcefully, and so sometimes he would just spit. And people would want to sit there, but she went there before anyone else, so she could sit in the very front of the front room. And she wanted Father to call her ugly that day so that she could respond. But that day, though, he didn't call her that way. Instead, he called her up to testify. What is she going to say? She spoke about her prayer. And after that, he never called her ugly after that. Why do you think so? If it had been us, we wouldn't be able to follow Father after that. But no matter how much Father may kick her or call her ugly or anything, she would not leave. And Father knew that. And so through that person, Father was teaching everyone. The divine principle teaches us that we are made in the image of God, but people know that through the principle, but they don't know it concretely in actuality, and so in reality. And so she wanted to teach everyone through this woman. That is how God teaches. For me, I have a kind of a similar experience as well. Sometime later, I may, if there's an opportunity, I may speak about that. So anyway, every person is different. And until now, there have been beauty contests, right? In the future, there should be ugly contests to see which is the ugliest woman. People who are not beautiful, people who are ugly, have to keep their head low and walk in embarrassment. But they should be proud as well, because they are also made in the because they are also in the image of God. And to have the ugliest women in the world come from around the world and to give a prize to the ugliest woman in the world. As the Father said, that kind of a contest needs to be held. But we weren't able to do that when Father was here. But a few years ago, though, the CARP did that. The CARP had a beauty contest in CARP, and so Father, they did part of Father's words, but someone has to do that again. So to bring together the beauty contest, but also ugly contest has to be held at the same time, and that has to be liberated. So that the ugly people can also be very proud of themselves, and they can be held more precious and have even more value than those who are beautiful. So the people are in the image of God, and that I believe that time will come. So think about it. President of the U.S., why don't you try that in America, to have that kind of contest in America? And I think among the 50 states, all the ugly people from around America will come, and they will all want to win the prize. If you give $10 million to the first prize, I think everyone, all the ugly people around the world would gather. And so Father wanted to liberate these people, and how wonderful it would be to have a leader like that. Today, Father was thinking about that, and it's because of Father's heart, God's heart, because he wanted to liberate God's heart. And so, because everyone is an individual truth body, and all unique, and sometimes something went wrong, and they don't have they have a physical disability or something like that, but these people need to be liberated. We have So there are people who cannot see, people who cannot hear, and they have people who have or people cannot speak. These people think how inconvenient it is for these people. After making the Cheonseongyung, the father said, "Well, everyone has to see this. Everyone has to hear this, but blind people cannot read it. Blind people can't see it. Their ears, they can hear in their ears, but so the father made it a CD so that the people could hear it, and also put images on there. Then there are these rooms where you can sing, and where these I think he's referred to the karaoke. The Cheonseongyung was made like that, and Father was very happy to see that. And the blind people have also been liberated, he said. Now they can't read it, but they can hear it. And no one can read it for them, all that huge content. But now, if you can't hear, they can read. But if people who are deaf can still read with their eyes. So Father wanted everyone to be able to come into contact with God's Word. And I've brought a number of those CDs here at this time, and I gave them to Hyungjinim, with the Japanese and Korean, and they've been recorded by famous announcers, news presenters, and it was very difficult for them to read it exactly without a mistake. But we had one woman who used to work for KBS, the major television station in Korea, broadcast network, and she was also very moved. She was also very moved as she was recording this content. She was not a member of our church, but she just read it through and started to record it. And Father said to witness to everyone, not regardless of gender or age or anything else. And now this. So now one time an old grandmother, an old woman, in her 60s, went out witnessing, and she took with her a copy of the Divine Principle, but she just said she met a university student, so she asked him to read it to her, and he read it to her, and as he was reading it to her, he was witnessed, and so he converted as he was, and that is how precious the Word of God is. So right now we have it closed though. We have the Divine Principle. I already know it. The people we think. But people who think they know it don't know it. And so the people who think they know it don't do anything. They don't develop. So do you think that things that I'm speaking right now just come about automatically? Do you know how much a father suffered in order to teach me? I didn't realize it when he was doing it. But when in South America, we were out on the sea for 50 days, and after I came to the land, it seemed like I kept thinking I was on the ocean. So and I was so dark. Someone saw my photograph after I'd become so sunburned that they sent some medicine for me from Korea. And he saw me. He says, "Oh, you need to go. Oh, I have to go back quickly." Why? I asked him. "I see your face. Now I realize I have to go back quickly." And so I said, don't worry about me. No. But Father said, I've been trained, so I can endure this. But you haven't been trained, so you can't endure. So you need to go back quickly. And so then, and so that is how much Father sacrificed for me in order to teach me. Sometimes he would speak to me one-on-one and just teach me quietly. This was love. This in with love, but he also gave me the responsibility to teach what he had taught me. So today, in this venue, I think I feel sorry on one hand because I'm not able to. I may not be able to convey all of Father's heart to you, but I can teach. I can teach you what Father taught me. That much I can do. So then, within the we've talked about the universal image and the individual image, and now let's talk about the divine nature. In divine principles, there's that God is said to be dual characteristics, and there's original Seong-sang and original Hyung-sang. And in the OSDP, how did we explain that? So we said that there is a divine form and a divine nature. Divine form is the universal form, and then within that there was an individual form, and this is the divine form. And then from now, then we're going to talk about divine nature now. So then, in divine nature, there's a lot of attributes. This is the kind of person he is. And so then, everything that people say about God is describing God. They list his attributes. He's the creator. He is the omniscient, omnipotent. He is the God of judgment. He is the God of love. He is unique. All these correspond to God's attributes. And then, if you ask then also the attributes. But we cannot understand God just according to his attributes. But he has, although we cannot see it, he has a form, and so it is the substantial. He is the indivisible but substantial Father, and then we could call it existential substance, but Father described it as a original substance of divine principle, not a original substance of existence. Why did he do that? And then John, it says that in the beginning there was Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and God created the world through the Word. And so the God is the Word, and the Word is God. And so then, the Word that the Father is with the God is the fundamental of all created beings. And so that is why God is the original substance of the principle. So there are many attributes of the divine nature, but there are three are most important. One is a Shim Jeong, a logos, and a creativity. And they're among the these are the most important attributes: Shim Jeong, logos, and creativity. So why are they so important? because but through this content, we can because they can contain the most fundamental content that will allow us to solve all the problems of the world. Without these, we cannot solve those problems. And so then we'll talk about the Shim Jeong, logos, and creativity now, because they are the key to solving the problems of the world. So let's talk about Shim Jeong first. So Shim Jeong is the core of the Songsang. And we said Songsang is the mind of God. And so then the essential aspect of that mind is Shim Jeong. So the Shim Jeong then is the essential attribute of God, but also is the root of true love. And if that root dies, then the tree dies. If there's no Shim Jeong, there can be no true love. So then that true love wants to live for the sake of others, wants to give, and that is the attribute, that kind of attribute it is. And when that is a practice in life, that becomes character. So as you have already heard, Father completely understood and completely explained even the Shim Jeong aspect, Shim Jeong part of God. So that content, is not something that we can just hear once and be satisfied. So then, Father said that you have to hear these. We have to hear these words at least 5 times. Also in the spirit world, we have to hear this at least 5 times. So Father taught everything, but human beings are ignorant and have their own thoughts, and that is why things are not going as they should. And so Shim Jeong is the essential aspect of God, and is the root of true love and the core of His character. And so Shim Jeong is the motive for God's creation of everything. And always for motivation there is a purpose, and for every purpose there is a motivation. So we go, whether we go or come, where we go to sleep and wake up, everything that we do is based on some motivation. Going to sleep, getting up in the morning, going someplace, coming back, everything has motivation. Why did you come here today? You had a motivation for coming here, didn't you? What is that motivation? They say they're going to educate the OSDP there, so why don't I go there? And they say come here because come because we have this education, so come. And so I'll just take a vacation from my work and come. So you had some motivation. So you had a purpose then, and you had a purpose for coming. So you had to hear this. So you came by a motivation, but then you have to find a purpose and then accomplish that purpose. So there can be no perfection in ignorance for that reason. So then Shim Jeong is the motivation for creation, and Shim Jeong is an irrepressible impulse to love and to feel joy. So to love and feel joy. So there can be no joy without love. So to give love and feel joy. It is an irrepressible impulse to do that. So then that is the motivation for creation. So there has to be an object for that love, and then in order to feel joy, and when what is something that's within God extends out of Him and is completed, then He can see that and feel joy, as the the and when he resembles the original substance, then God feels joy. So there cannot be real joy unless there's resemblance. There are many children. You can have many children, but your children are the cutest, aren't they? And they're the most lovely because they resemble you, and because they came from me. So my children I think my children are the cutest of all. So the father's seed. So that's why the father loves his children the most. The mother did not have this seed, but she received the seed and nurtured that, and so then gave them and mother gave them their nurture and so that they could grow within her, and then gave birth to them, and then breastfed them when they were them. Do you think that babies only drink the mother's milk because they are hungry? But no, they want to feed on the mother's breast because also they want love, and so what is love then? So I don't know because I'm a man, but that's the logic that a woman. When they give birth to a baby, how cute that is, and all their fingers and it's so cute for you. And everything is different, and it's very soft and it's very beautiful, and the face is so beautiful, and when they cry when they're hungry, and when they dirty their diaper, then they also cry. So the mother who knows this. So that's okay. That's all okay, she says. So she will change the diapers, and when they're hungry, she'll feed them. And then, when is it that the mother can give her the most? And that is through her breasts and through her sexual organs. So that is why the sexual organ is so important. So when the child is born, then her breast will grow larger, and so that it becomes when the baby does not feed, then the breast it becomes so painful for the mother. But it's good for the baby to drink that mother's milk because it gives them immunities. And it's very painful for the woman when the baby sucks on it, especially when it happens to be a strong baby. It's extremely painful for the mother. And so, I saw one child who was sucking so hard that it was actually. Gave laceration, and then that is where the most sensitive part of the mother's body. But the mother gives love through that. But at the same time that is breastfeeding is giving love. So if the mother says, "Hey, this is hurt," so go use a bottle. No, that's not the way that the mother should be. But milk is for cows. That's just for calves. That's what the calf should eat, should drink. So you give that to our loving children as your own children. Because it hurt? No, that's not right. And so that is why we have so much breast cancer today among women, because they're not feeding their babies properly. See, but that is because that is how women were designed. They were designed to feed their babies with their breasts. That's the mother. So How about it? People who have given birth, do you agree with me? Is it? Yeah. So then, I think we are too old to be feeding babies, but how wonderful it would have been if we had known this before. So then, now everything's finished, so that now you may feel, oh, I wish I'd known this before. I would have treated my baby better. But at least we have children. We can teach them. We have grandchildren, and so let's teach them about this. That you need to do this. Yeah, so I'll try it. He said, "This is what we need to do." Would you want to do that? And then then it would be good that you came to this education then.
So when a mother is breastfeeding her child, the child is not just receiving milk, but receiving love. Yeah. And there's some people whose breasts are rather small. And then, if they don't have enough milk to provide to their children, then they need to supplement it. But then when you're giving the milk to the baby, then you need to embrace the baby and carry the baby. And don't just give the bottle milk to the baby, separately, but need to embrace the child, and so that the child even has a feeling that it's breastfeeding. And when the child is breastfeeding, then the child's cheek is against the mother's breast and feels that warmth on the cheek directly. So even if you don't have any breast milk to feed, you still need to embrace them and let them have that experience of love. And then, in your heart, you can, express to the child, look, I'm sorry I don't have milk to give you, but I still want to love you in this way. And if you do this, then that child will definitely grow up to be a wonderful child, because you've invested that heart and raised it. What makes filial children? When the parents invest themselves and show their hearts to the child, then that's how the child learns how to be a filial child. In a filial child's family, that's where a filial child is born, showing them the model. In the family of a loyal patriot, that's where patriots are born. So people are important. Love is important, and the root of love is Shim Jeong. And where does that Shim Jeong come from? Come from God. So again, let's continue. So God created the object of love, and because of love, He wanted to have that object of love, an object of joy. Therefore, giving love to the object. When the mother gives love to the child is joyful and even better, and then the mother loves the child even more. When the mother gives, milk to the child and pours out the love with that, and then the child returns love to the parent, to the mother. There's two types of love there. There's joy and there's love, and it's a reciprocal relationship. But if the parent, what about if the child is, urinating, or does a parent reject that and, I don't like that? But by loving that, then you build that bond of love in relationship. So the center of love is God, and love is the flow of the Shim Jeong. The internal Shim Jeong flows out from the internal Shim Jeong. That's love. And the nature of God, the essence of God, is Shim Jeong. So, how did God create the universe and human beings? God created the universal human beings because of Shim Jeong. And where there is Shim Jeong, that's where life is. Life only emerges in the place where there is Shim Jeong. And development and action also occur in the place where life is. So what is true love? True love is the bone of Shim Jeong, the longing heart, the core of the longing heart. That is the longing heart, the longing Shim Jeong. This is true love. So in our hearts, if we don't long for something, then we're dead. If we're not longing, if we don't feel this sense of longing, do you feel this sense of longing in your hearts? I want to see this person. Oh, I want to give this thing. Oh, it's in the middle of the night. Oh, run for 20. There's somebody I want to, meet, even if I have to go 20 kilometers in the middle of the night. If I don't meet that person, I'll just feel, empty. That experience. In the beginning of the church, this is the life that lived by our early brothers and sisters, early members. Sometimes, even, they would have to go a long way to find someone to witness to. But the thing that we longed for the most was our brothers and sisters, our shiku. In Korean, we say shiku, meaning members of our family. How much I longed for them. How much we longed for each other. And if we didn't meet each other, we just felt so lonely. Even in the really early in the morning, in order to visit one member, one time I went 60 kilometers early in the morning. So, I went and saw that person, shed tears, came back, needed to go again. When I came back, my legs were so really, really sore. That was the life of the early members. We had that longing heart because we wanted to see each other. But in our brothers and sisters today, that kind of longing has disappeared. Out of all of the 7.3 billion human beings, how much do we long for each other? If we longed for each other in the same way that God longs for us, how wonderful this would be. Then if all of human beings longed for each other with their heart, we wouldn't need national borders. We wouldn't need to have all these distinctions. So, within God's divine nature, the most core point is Shim Jeong. And it's the most fundamental standard for resolving all problems and solving issues of life within God's divine image. So, in the center we have Shim Jeong, and this is manifest in intellect, emotion, and will, as I mentioned yesterday. So, within our human heart, we have emotion, intellect, and will, and those three different manifestations of our mind. Where did they come from? They came from God, from God's mind, in God's songsang. And then we have internal songsang and internal hyongsang within God. And the inner songsang is the most deepest part of God's heart, where God designs and has the vision and builds that blueprint. And when that's manifested in a concrete plan, concrete dimension, that's the inner hyongsang. So principle and law and order. And then that is combined with the external material and manifests as the created beings. So emotion, intellect, and will, where does it come from? It comes from heart. They're a manifestation of heart. So heart, Shim Jeong, is the basis of emotion, intellect, and will. But are they the same? Is Shim Jeong the same as emotion? It comes from Shim Jeong. Shim Jeong is a more profound, deep dimension, and Chi Jeong is, or emotion, intellect, and will, is a more superficial manifestation of that. So intellect that is separated from Shim Jeong doesn't make sense. Emotion that is separated from Shim Jeong is corrupt and incorrect. A purpose that is separated from Shim Jeong isn't in alignment with God. It's the core functions of our mind, emotion, intellect, and will. These all come from God, Shim Jeong. So, while Shim Jeong is the basis for emotion, intellect, and will, and then they each have what the value that they want to accomplish and desire, and those values are manifest. They manifest those values externally, centering on Shim Jeong, emotion. Emotion, as the expression of Shim Jeong, desires beauty and creates art, and volition or will, as the expression of Shim Jeong, desires goodness, and that's the basis for ethics and for morality. Intellect, as the expression of Shim Jeong, desires truth. And that's the origin of philosophy or science. So the question is, these functions in us, are they connected with Shim Jeong? Doesn't matter how great or wonderful some academic theory is, if it's not connected with Shim Jeong, then it's wrong. It's bent. For example, communists think that their philosophy, their truth is extremely scientific, extremely logical. They think it's truth, and they give their lives for that truth. But is that how it is? No, it's not truth. It's a lie. Why is it a lie? It's not connected with the root of God's heart. Its root is not connected with God's heart. But it's their own thing, separated from God's heart. So how about human being and Shim Jeong? The place where a person experiences Shim Jeong and develops a Shim Jeong is in the family. Through their parent, this is the standard. Shim Jeong is the basic foundation for the standard within the family, and if they're not connected with that Shim Jeong, in the case of communists, they don't have that connection with that Shim Jeong, and they don't have the ideal to establish a family centered on Shim Jeong. In a society, how about the democratic world today? Individuals, families, we see all this breakdown within the family and separation between individuals. God created us to create and reflect His nature, so we need to establish families that resemble God's nature, blessed families, and that's why we have to accomplish tribal messiahship. Our thinking today is different. The viewpoint is different. Our purpose is different. Our lifestyle itself is different. So centering on Shim Jeong, we have to pursue emotion, intellect, and will, centering on Shim Jeong, and we need to pursue science and art and morality, centering on Shim Jeong. In ignorance, human beings are not able to understand the true value of these things. So scientists who pursue their academic studies, what about philosophy? It's the organization of things that people think about. What is the basis of the universe? In order to find the basis of the universe, that's philosophy. And they need to find human beings. But to some extent, it's all just theoretical. What about science theory? Communist theory is understood as a type of philosophy or scientific, but that's not true. It's not connected with they have not connected their root to Shim Jeong. So what about us today who understand the principle? We need to love and live for the sake of others, even 10 times more than the cruelty executed by communists. When we do that, then we can move the world. And the foundation for that is family. When husband and wife come together as one, those two people, that's the standard for the family. Do you long for each other with that heart, with that Shim Jeong? Or when there's a conflict there, do you run away? Eternally, every day, you want to come more closely together, become more united, become closer to each other. Without Shim Jeong, then you just move away from each other. And these are elements from Satan. Have a look at grains. When they grow, the seed germinates, comes out as a stalk, and then they have a flower. And within the flower, that flower germinates or is pollinated and bears fruit. And then you take that fruit and eat it. But if it's immature fruit and you eat it, then it doesn't taste any good and you throw it away. Therefore, fallen human beings, we are immature, undeveloped, and they need to be erased. Immature fruit needs to be thrown in the rubbish bin. If you eat it, you'll be sick. Same with fallen human beings. Therefore, from God, so people who do not believe in religion, if they don't feel their conscience, even though they don't believe in religion, but they follow their conscience, they won't go to heaven, but they also won't go to hell. They didn't do evil things, therefore they cannot be taken by Satan and taken to to hell. But because they haven't understood God or connected with God, Shim Jeong, they cannot be brought into the heavenly realm either, and they're in the middle realm. And that's an incredible volume of people in that middle realm. And then we have paradise in that middle realm. What about the blessed families of the Unification family today? Then there's a different section of the spirit world that is different, where Unification blessed families go to. Even if in the fallen world they received liberation, and the fallen world has achieved liberation, many individuals, if we still do not accomplish release from our own spiritual sin and baggage, then we cannot move forward into that realm. So even though we're maybe in the sphere of God's realm, True Father's realm of liberation, if our own internal content has not been liquidated and we have therefore accomplished complete release, we cannot experience the fullness of that True Father's realm of liberation. So recently a person who entered the spirit world sent a message back to us on earth. That person said, they had many things that they were ashamed of when they saw. They sent a message to not to express their own difficulty, but to encourage Unification family members not to end up in the same place. Many brothers and sisters have been hurt in their heart and damaged in their heart. So in the spirit world, then the content of that person's life is all there, visible on the surface of that person, how they lived their life and what they did. But the problem is, in the spirit world, there is no law of indemnity and cannot be resolved. Therefore, it has to be resolved in the physical world on the earth. Therefore, the descendants of people in the spirit world have to set up the conditions to remove and erase those things, those problems. It's incredibly precious and accurate content that True Father taught to us. Maybe if I talk about the spirit world like this, you may think, is that really true? Is that really what it is? But yes, that's how it is. So, today, until we die, we have something that we need to accomplish. We have to resolve the issues of our ancestors And we need to educate our descendants so that they don't live in a way. And then, so we have to be responsible for the past, for the future, and the present. That's us. So I'm responsible for all of those dimensions. So, based on Shim Jeong, we have emotion, intellect, and will. And emotion that is rooted in Shim Jeong seeks beauty, manifests in the realm of art. So based on Shim Jeong, emotion, how much in the modern world we have all these definitions of beauty and images of beauty around, but if they're how good would it be if those images of beauty that we see are rooted in God Shim Jeong? Today, the human beings in the world, through their hearts or minds, doesn't matter what they create,
Do you know when Holy Song number 1 was written? When Father went 40 years ago, in 1940, when Father went to North Korea, without telling his family where he was going, and he went out to shopping for rice, but just went on to North Korea, and he was caught by police and placed in jail, and he was tortured, and he was walking. He was between life and death. And they just threw him out on the street because they didn't want him to die in the police station, and he was almost dead. And a few people picked up, and they were actually preparing his funeral. But then, in the morning, he was on his knees and praying in the morning. They thought he was going to die, in the prayer, he received that he could go to a particular pharmacy and get a particular medicine from that pharmacy, and that would help him. So there's the new song of victors. Is that the number 1? Do you know where he wrote the second verse of that song? The two verses, second and third, was when he came out from Hungnam. And he was walking. He walked from Hungnam to Pyongyang, and he was there for 40 days. Everyone else was already gone, and he thought that maybe his members might be waiting for him, and so he took 40 days to search for them in Pyongyang. And he could have gone a little further to go to his homeland, but Father did not go to his parents' house though. But he wanted to. He was more interested in the members of his congregation. So Jesus could not receive the love of his parents or of his siblings, so this 40 days was a time for him to indemnify the heart of Jesus. And he wanted very much to see his parents, but he chose not to. Instead, seeking his congregation. And the holy songs 2 and 3 were written at that time. These numbers are in the Korean Holy Song book. Then the anthem of a certain nation has to have the purpose of that nation within that. This is not a nation like on the earthly nation. It is a nation. Is a nation that represents the victory of God's Shim Jeong. So the anthem of that nation has to be written by the person who knows that, not some kind of a doctor of a culture or something like that. This is not a school song. So when we sing the national anthem of Cheonryuk, we well up with tears, And the more we sing it, the more deeply we understand its meaning, because it has such deep meaning. As Father wrote those words with such deep meaning. And then Holy Song 4. Do you know when that was written? Number 4. Father took a year to write Worldly Wonbon, and then and then Holy Song number 4 was written at the end of his writing of the Worldly Wonbon. Number 5, Holy Song 5, was when he was in Hungnam, and he wrote it in Hungnam. And in that song, there was a Japanese military march. There was that tune. So he wrote the words to match that melody. And so then the disciples learned it and came to South Korea, and they sang it in Bomdaekol in Busan, and then that was then someone wrote a new melody for it. That is the number 5. So these 5 are completely different from other holy songs. So Father composed these the words to these holy songs. So before Father left us, he said, I would like to write many more holy songs. I need to write more holy songs, he said. Because music is very important for pastoral work. When you have a worship service, you first sing holy songs, don't you? Christians sing hymns. It's the same. Father, in the early days of the church, before he spoke, he sang a lot of songs, not just a few, but the Song of the Garden. The Lord to his garden comes to sing it once, twice, 3 times, sometimes even 10 times. And then it was easy that he was even sweating and shedding tears. And people who were in the congregation, even the first-time comers, would shed tears. And then he would pray, and then he would speak. And then while he was speaking, he would then sing again, and then pray, and then also speak again, and then also pray again. And sing. Now in our services, just have one holy song, and the minister speaks maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and that's the end. How can they explain all of God's providence in that short amount of time? There's only one opportunity in the week, and how can they spend such a short time giving a sermon? Father said that when he would stand on the stage to speak, he felt like a criminal about to be executed. He was very serious because the people's lives were at stake. And he had to resurrect those lives. This is the time when he was taking responsibility for people's lives. And so now, though, pastors don't do it that way in the Family Federation, though. I have not seen any pastor do it that way. After Father Songhwa, there was a contest, a national contest for Divine Principle lectures, and also for sermons, so the regional leaders each gave a sermon, and they were given prize. They were graded first, second, and third. And I told them this at that time. I told them, you gave sermons, but you have no view of the principle. I said, you have no principled view, and you don't have God's principle, God's providential viewpoint. You gave dead sermons. I told them. So people are giving sermons just talking about the things going on in the world. Anybody could do that, but there has to be the view of the principle. There has to be the view of the providence. And there has to be God's tears and God's blood has to be there. There has to be God's sweat imbued in those sermons. So that is that's what we can express with sermons, but they lack that. And so that is why members are not being resurrected. They just go in, here and there and just out of their habit. And so people who come to the Sanctuary Church, they should not be that way. So Shim Jeong is, we said, is the fundamentals of intellect, emotion, and will. You understand that? So much time has passed, and I could explain this in a minute, but I spent an hour on this. If I were to spend a minute, how much you would listen to it and you would understand in your mind, but it would not seep into your heart. So these words have to have emotion, has to have a will, and has to have a love. So we need to realize this. So that is why the fundamental of intellect, emotion, will. That is why the Shim Jeong is the fundamental. So for us to receive this education is not just to listen to some sound, but to feel the Shim Jeong and to feel Father's love and a word, and to understand His purpose and direction, and to understand His circumstances, and understand the circumstances of His life. So then, let's take a break now for 30 minutes, and we will go to the next lecture. Thank you.